Analysis of ancient teeth questions theory that Native Americans originated from Japan. The biological evidence simply does not match up with archaeological finds. Native Americans may not have originated in Japan as previous archaeological evidence has suggested, according to a new study of ancient teeth. For years, archaeologists have had predicted that the first people to live in North America descended directly from a group called the Jomon, who occupied ancient Japan about 15,000 years ago. The same time, people arrived in North America around 15,000 years ago via the Bering Land Bridge, according to theories, a land strip of that previously connected Russia to North America before sea levels rose above it. This theory is based on archaeological similarities in stone tools, especially projectile weapons found in Native American and Jomon settlements. However, the authorities of the new study say this scenario is highly unlikely because the biological evidence simply does not match up with the archaeological findings, according to the statement from the researchers. The Jomon were not directly ancestral to Native Americans. Lead author Richard Scott, anthropologist, University of Nevada, Reno, told Life Science. They, the Jomon, are more aligned with Southeastern Asia and Pacific groups than with East Asian and Native American groups. Instead, the researchers suspect that Native Americans descended from a different group living somewhere in East Asia, although a lot of uncertainty remains about exactly where and when those ancestors lived. An archaeological theory? Scott and his colleagues began their study because they were unconvinced by the main argument linking Native American with the Jomon, the stone tools similarities, they said. The artifact similarities between ancient Jomon and at least some of the earliest known Native American sites lie in the stemmed projectile points. Co-author John Hoffaker, archaeologist at the Institute of Arctic and Alpine Research, University of Colorado Boulder, said, these similarities led previous researchers to suspect that the knowledge to make those tools had been passed down from one culture to the other, he said. The study, researchers said, this evidence was not compelling enough to make the conclusion. Cultural parallels are not unusual, Scott said. People can borrow ideas from others or independently come up with similar solutions to the same problems. Instead, the researchers turned to genetic analysis to uncover the origins of Native Americans. Scott said, I think paleogenetics adds a tremendous amount of information to reconstruction of population history. It does not supplant archaeology, but has become an important adjunct method that can address issues archaeologists can't get at. The teeth analysis? To look at the genetic links between the two groups, the researchers turned to teeth, which can provide a wealth of genetic information. Tooth crown and root morphology has been studied intensively in twins and families, and there is no question that they are under strong genetic control, Scott said. Unlike other genetic traits, such as blood type, which are controlled by a single gene, dental morphology is polygenic, meaning it is influenced by a combination of many different genes, he said. For example, in another recent study, one version of a gene known as ADAR V370A was recently found to alter the shape of shovel-shaped incisors by around 20% in people who have it, which would make that gene very easy to identify and track through time using dental records, Scott said. Now, this means that the shape of teeth and their roots can provide researchers with a lot of information about the person's genetic origins and how closely related two individuals are compared to others. Additionally, teeth shapes are rarely influenced by environmental factors, which make them a reliable way of looking at ancestry. A change in the environment does not trigger a change in dental morphology, Scott said. You can invent similar artifact styles, but you cannot invent your dental morphology. In the study, Scott and his team compared 25 dental morphology traits in around 1,500 sets of ancient teeth from North American and Jomon people dating back over 10,000 years, as well as other ancient groups of Asia, East Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific. This analysis of tooth traits and DNA within the teeth revealed that the Native Americans were not closely related enough to the Jomon people to consider them ancestors, but that they may have descended from another unknown group from East Asia, Scott said. The authors make a convincing argument for eliminating Japan's Jomon people as direct ancestors of the first Native Americans. Brian Fagan, archaeologist, University of California, said, who was not involved in the study. He said it's a major advance in our knowledge of the first Americans. Uncertain origin. Although the study suggests Native Americans did not descend directly from the Jomon people of Japan, as previously thought, the two groups would have shared a much older common ancestor, Scott said. He said the common ancestor of Jomon and Native Americans could go back many millennia more than 30,000 years, while the common ancestor of East Asian and Native Americans would be more recent, less than 30,000 years ago. However, it's unclear exactly who the Native Americans' East Asian ancestors were. The most likely point of origins is what many call Greater Beringia, a region of Northeast Asia that connected to the Bering Land Bridge and is now within modern-day Siberia, Scott said. But at this time, there are limited remains from this area, so it's hard to be more precise, he said. The researchers also think that Native Americans would have lived in isolation for multiple generations before they migrated to North America, another factor that makes it harder to determine their exact genetic origins. Ancestors of Native Americans were likely stalled out in Beringia during the late Pleistocene, when ice sheets and glaciers would have trapped them until conditions improved enough to allow travel down the west coast of North America, Scott said. And during this period of isolation, they differentiated from ancestral populations in East Asia. However, recent findings, including the discovery of footprints in New Mexico dating as far back as 23,000 years, have called into question exactly when people arrived in North America, Live Science previously reported. Unfortunately, we can't address the issue with the data at hand, Scott said. And this is originally published by Live Science. The study was published in the journal Paleo America. And this is by Harry Baker of Live Science and Collective Spark. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.